Hey babe, welcome to Baseball for Girls, where baseball meets soft girl energy. I'm Shaughnessy, and here we do baseball with heart, humanity, and a little humor. So, whether you're brand new to the game or deep in your baseball era, you're in the right place. So grab something cozy and settle in, and let's get into today's episode. Let's play ball. Hello, brave babes, and welcome back to another episode of Baseball for Girls. So today I'll be talking about how baseball is a game of failure. But really I'll be starting with how I got into baseball myself, because that's really like the fundamental parts of baseball and like the values of it are really what attracted me to the sport in the first place and what keeps me attracted to it. So I didn't grow up watching baseball. My friends didn't watch baseball. I don't know anybody who really watches baseball except for like some of my friends' husbands. And so I don't really ever get the chance to talk about it, which is also why I wanted to start this podcast, just to give me an excuse to talk about baseball more. But I started watching baseball, I remember because it was the year that the Astros won the World Series. They were playing the Phillies, so that was 2022. That is the year that I really started getting into baseball. So how I started, I mentioned in my first episode how I would watch Apple TV because they have baseball on Fridays, and the announcers on Apple TV explain things a lot more plainly and really give descriptions of things. But also, like I said, I haven't been watching it these past couple of seasons. I only watched it that first season, so I actually don't know if they really explain things the same way that they were when they first started, because that was the first year that they had baseball on Fridays. So it was really like, a coincidence. I really don't believe in coincidence. It's more like they coincided with me having an interest in baseball, and I guess Apple TV also having an interest in baseball. So I was like, oh, well, it comes on Fridays. I can just, try to watch the game and see if I can figure it out. In the first couple of weeks, I didn't really understand anything. But like I said, like those announcers were really good at explaining everything. And so it became kind of a fun little hobby of me trying to figure out what everything meant without Googling it or like looking on Reddit. Mostly because the people on Reddit were not very nice to me whenever I would ask a question. So I stopped doing that, and I just focused on just learning organically. And that's how I really fell in love with it too. I was able to really just watch the game and enjoy it for what it was. And I think that a reason why one of my favorite teams is the Mariners is because the very first game that I ever watched was a Mariners game. I don't remember who they were playing, but I remember loving Julio Rodriguez. I really want to do player spotlights, and he will definitely be one of the first, if not the first player that I give a spotlight to, because I just think that he's one of the best players. But anyway, so first couple of weeks I was just watching it on Fridays until I realized that baseball comes on every single day. I was watching a game and the announcer just happened to mention another game that was going on at the same time, and I was like, what? And so I also, a coincidence, not really, but my apartment complex started giving us free cable, I guess, included in the rent, whatever, right around that time. So then I was able to watch baseball on cable. And that was really fun too. So at that time, I was living in Pennsylvania. So my options were aplenty. Living in PA, because you have the Orioles, which is the team that I ended up choosing as my favorite. And then you have the Phillies, the Pirates, the Philadelphia Phillies, the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the DC Nationals, or, the Washington Nationals. So those are my 4 choices. The Nationals and the Pirates pretty much always lose. It's not fun games to watch. It's just kind of sad, especially, that year in particular too. They just were not very good, and so it wasn't that fun to watch. And the Phillies always win, and so it's just like, not as exciting. I know you're going to win, But the Orioles were always such an underdog team. You never knew if they were going to win or they're going to lose, but they were going to play with heart, Like, you could really tell, like, they just had a team that had a really good culture at that time. And so then I just chose the Orioles. When people started asking me who my favorite team was, at first I would just be like, I don't have one. I just like watching baseball. And that was never a satisfying answer for people. So then I was like, great, okay, let me just choose a team so I can continue the conversation. And so I chose the Orioles. So that's kind of how I got started, like, watching baseball. And a couple months in, I think it was June, I'm trying to remember. Yes, I do remember. So the first game that I ever went to was the Orioles versus the Astros. Pretty sure we lost. No, I went there for the full weekend. So I think we won once and we lost once. So as you might know, baseball works in series, like little series between each team. So, for example, I went to a weekend series in Baltimore. So that every weekend, all the teams are playing, and they'll play Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it's always best of 3. Clearly. And then, whoever wins the series, it just kind of adds to their tallies for the end of the year. It really makes the most difference at the end of the year, or the end of the season, when it's about to be the postseason. That's like a more complicated thing that I can explain probably next year around the postseason. Having an episode about that, like how to actually understand all of these little things that were happening throughout the season, and now all of a sudden all of them matter, and they didn't seem like they mattered at the time. And I think that's also what I love about baseball, because it is so relatable to life. So now that I've kind of introduced that, I'd love to talk about how baseball is such a mirror for life. Even though, it is a game of failure, these players, they have batting averages that are super low. If you think about it, sometimes people say something like, oh, he's batting 1,000, which is completely not realistic. So batting 1,000 means like you hit the ball 100% of the time. No. That can happen over a smaller sample size of games. Like, he was batting 1,000 over this one series, this weekend series. That is possible. Or in a game, in one game, he batted 1,000. But overall, it's an average of the entire season. And so typically, an batting average is like 0.2, like 0.22 to like 0.3. Like in that big range is like all the batting averages that someone can have. So 0.22 to 0.3. So that's 22% and 30%. So that means 22 to 30% of the time, these players are hitting the ball. And a hit is when the ball actually touches the ground. And that's a base hit. And so there's other factors that go into batting averages, but I will explain that in my beginner baseball terms kind of episode that I'll have. There's a lot of other factors that go into the average, but one of the biggest parts is that they are hitting the ball, really. So, like I said, 0.22 to 0.3, not a lot of players are getting to 0.3, okay? Your favorite player is probably 0.28. And that's really good, you know? So 22 to 30% of the time they're hitting the ball. So that means the other 70+% of the time they don't hit the ball. They go up and they swing through a strike, or they do a pop-up, you know, and so a pop-up is when the batter hits the ball, but it goes directly into the glove of an outfielder. So he pops up the ball. He popped it up. And yeah, so you tried and you failed at that plate appearance. You were not able to give your team another chance by getting a base hit or a double, so like getting 2 bases. You weren't able to contribute and to see the team in that way, and you can really beat yourself up about that, you know, because you only get so many plate appearances per game. I feel like usually each player will go up 3 to 4 times per game. So you don't really even get that many opportunities to even redeem yourself if you had a bad plate appearance the first time. And so that's why people say that baseball is a game of failure, because you have to go up and it's just you and the pitcher if you're a batter, and you're trying to hit this ball. Like, that's all that they can think about. They have to be focused in that moment. They have to be so present, and they have to slow down the game. They have to slow down their breath. They talk about, people in baseball really talk about slowing down your heart rate. The guy with the lowest heart rate is like going to be doing the best. It's like being able to calm yourself in those moments, because they are big moments. Sometimes it's the bottom of the ninth and the bases are loaded and the game is tied, and if you can just hit a home run, we're gonna win the World Series or something. Like, sometimes they're really, really like big moments, and it can be scary, I would imagine, especially because the ball is so tiny. It's a little tiny ball, and then the pitcher is pitching at 100 miles per hour, and you're expected to hit a tiny little dot that going 100 miles per hour. And if you don't, the people are like, boo! I hate when people boo. It just doesn't make any sense. These are just people, you know, they're just trying to play their game. But anyway, so these players have to have so much resilience, right? They have to be able to shake things off quickly. They can be upset for like a moment or two, of course, and they just let the emotions pass through them, and they have to go back up in a few minutes, right? So they can't dwell on the last at-bat or the next at-bat. They really have to just be there. And I feel like that is just such a beautiful metaphor for how we should be living our lives. Like, we have to just get up every day and try to be as present as possible, try to be as focused on our goals as possible, remind ourselves that we are here living, breathing, and it's a miracle. Just like these players, like, it's a miracle in a way to be chosen and get to go to the show, is what they call it. They get to go to MLB. They get to be a major league player. And I feel like most of those players do not take that for granted. You know, I feel like whenever they're getting interviewed, you can hear in their voice like the gratitude that they have just to play. I can make another episode more about like the tiers of baseball, like there's low A, high A, double A, or just regular A, then double A, then triple A, and then MLB. So some of these players go through all of those layers of baseball until they get called up to go be a major leaguer. And so it's a very humbling sport. There will be days where you batted 1,000 or something and everybody loves you. And sometimes you're going to be the player that drops the ball or misses the play. And it'll be quote unquote your fault or whatever that the team lost. But you have to remember, like, it was you, quote unquote, who won the game, the night before. And that's why you can't hold on to either of those realities too tightly. And I think that is how we should be living our life anyway. You can't hold on to anything tightly. You have to loosen your grip, because if you don't, you will suffer. And baseball has a lot of suffering, right? Because of that. It's just the idea of it being a game of failure. Like, you are theoretically, quote unquote, failing 70+% of the time. But you're still expected to come back and do it again. And so I think that that's just the most beautiful aspect of baseball. And I think it's really cool, that we're able to have a sport that really can really teach us something about life and how we should be living. But, I read a book. Well, I didn't finish it, but I was gifted a book about baseball and Buddhism, because I'm also Buddhist, if you can't tell from the rhetoric of this episode. And it's about like how closely intertwined the two are, because a lot of literally everything I was just saying about having to not hold things tightly and like being able to be resilient and like all those things are like the core beliefs of Buddhism. And so I feel like that's also what attracted me to it as well. I actually discovered Buddhism the same year that I discovered baseball, now that I think about it. And so I think that just looking at these players like they're people, because they're just everyday people like you and me. They just happen to hit the ball pretty well. And now they get to make a bunch of money for doing it, and their careers are not very long. Most of them are done by the age of 35, like maybe 36, 37 if you're a pitcher. But most of them, like, their bodies can't handle it, but for so long. And I think that, they have to cherish every moment because they know that they're not going to be able to be there forever. And I also think it's really cool because most of them, start pretty young, like 18, 19. And then you see them getting married and having children. And like by the time their kids are like 10, they're retired. And now they get to spend more time with their family. And I just think that baseball just works out so well. It's such a romantic sport. It really just, you can't even really explain the sparkle of baseball in just a couple of words. So, yeah, baseball gets the rap of being a game of failure. And that's like kind of a harsher way to put it, but it truly is. I mean, you're not going to win every game. There's 162 games. They play every day. They get maybe 1 or 2 days off a month. A month? That's just insane. They are really putting a lot of, like, a heavy toll on their body, on their mental health. It's a lot to carry, I could imagine. Especially having to get up and do it again tomorrow. I think that is also just the hardest part for even me to grasp. It's just like, you don't really get any breaks. You get a one week break, the All-Star break. And unless you're good, because the All-Stars have to play, they have to keep playing. And there's all sorts of stats about, like, the players who had to do the All-Star game and how they did after the All-Star game, or players that did worse after the All-Star game, or like having that break meant that like a lot of teams lost series that they probably would have won, just because of that. What do they call it? Rust over rest or something like that. So it's like you're getting rusty because you're resting too much, and your body is used to playing every single day, and then you stop and then you try to do it again and your body's like, what? I could totally see that being a thing. They talk about that a lot, especially in the postseason, because now you're talking, I don't even know how many games, unless you're like the Dodgers, who had to play in the wild card series, the division league series, the championship series, and the World Series after playing 162 games. So sometimes you have to play a lot more. So that just goes to show that it just takes a really heavy toll on your body. And, you know, only the strongest ones or the most resilient ones get to win. You know, I'll try to make a little episode about the World Series, but just briefly thinking, I really enjoyed the World Series last year because it was Dodgers v. Yankees, and we are not necessarily Yankees fans around here. We love everybody, okay? We love everyone equally. Well, yes, equally, yes. But we do play favorites. We love everyone, but we do play favorites. And the Yankees just happen to not be a favorite. I do love the Dodgers. I just love, like, all the players. It's kind of impossible not to like them. And last year they were playing the Yankees. They won in 5 games. So that was just incredible to watch. I still rewatch those games to this day. It was super good. But I was just going to say that they just have, like, magic right now. They kept saying this postseason they're trying to start a dynasty, and I think, you know, winning 2 games in a row when literally, or not 2 games, but 2 World Series in a row when literally no one has done that since 2000, and it was like the Yankees. Or was it 2001? I'm pretty sure it was 2000. I think they won like 1999 and 2000. And so they are really trying to make a name for this roster of Dodgers players. Like, the Dodgers, everybody knows the Dodgers, you know, you don't have to be a baseball fan to get the concept of the Dodgers, but these players are really trying to be the ones that are setting these records, you know, and you can feel it. Like, when I was watching the World Series last year, you could feel it. You could just feel that the Dodgers are going to just win. This series, however, it was definitely not super clear. It did kind of feel like the Dodgers stole it. And I mean, sometimes that happens, and that's literally just baseball. Whoever is hot is gonna win, or whoever can play the best. You know, like, it is interesting during the season, and whenever I'm going over those during the season episodes, it's so interesting to see how some teams that are super good, because they're playing other teams that are just not that good. And then they come to the Dodgers, or they go to the Yankees, or literally anyone in the American League East, and they get pummeled because they don't actually know how to play baseball correctly. You know, they don't know just these little tiny things that actually make or break the game. And the Blue Jays made a lot of mistakes. They did in the last 2 games. If they didn't, they would have won, you know? And so it's little things like that where it's like, yeah, baseball is just a game of failure. There's going to be winners and losers too, just of like the essence of the game. But overall, like, each player is humbled every single game in some way, because sometimes you'll hit a home run in one inning, but then you'll end up missing a play in the next inning. And so you just have to be patient with yourself. You have to be super resilient. You have to be forgiving. You have to be compassionate towards yourself and towards your fellow teammates, and try to operate as one as much as you can. And so it's a beautiful game when you really analyze it, and baseball fans love to analyze baseball, mostly for the math. That's also why I like baseball. There's so much math. I mean, I wasn't really that great at math as a kid. I really was into biology. I'm a biologist. I'm a molecular biologist by training. So yeah, I mean, I know how to do math, but it was never my favorite. But there's so much math in baseball. I love, like, hearing about the trajectories and the this and the that, and like, it's always super interesting. And so, and then obviously there's just like the batting averages, this average, that average, and ERA, and just like all these other little statistics. Not that I was ever good at statistics, Lord, don't get me lying now. I did not enjoy statistics at all. But my teacher was really cute, so I kept going back to class. You know, it was one of those. It was definitely one of those in college. So yeah, I mean, that is really all that I have when it comes to thinking of baseball in a different way. This is a game of failure. However, it is also a game of resilience. It is a game of passion. And so if you can always stay resilient and continue to stay passionate about your sport or about your life or whatever goal you're trying to reach or whatever you're doing, that is how you get there. You know, that is how you wake up one day and you've won the World Series. It's a bunch of tiny, tiny steps. It's a bunch of small wins. And that's how you get there. Every day you show up and you just try your best. And maybe today you don't do your best, but you know that you will always have another opportunity for as long as you're alive. You'll always have another opportunity to try again. And that is just, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So I think that is all for me today. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to rate and I guess like, I don't know. I actually don't know. Rate the episode, I guess. Let me know, what do you love about baseball? And we'll talk again soon. Thanks for tuning in. Bye. Oh my gosh, wait. So, well, hey babes, thank you for tuning in for another episode of Baseball for Girls. I probably forgot to plug the things that I'm doing, including my Instagram, so I just wanted to come back here and plug all my little things really quick. So my Instagram is baseball4girls_, and I just kind of post on there whenever I upload a new episode. I also have a baseball score tracker. It has about 40 weeks in it, and it has like some notes sections so that you can also keep track of games throughout the week. I use it for Major League Baseball games, but you can also use it for minor league games, your kids' games, your friends that are playing baseball, whatever. It's really just a nice way to keep track of all the games and the scores from each game, especially since baseball is typically played in series. So you should check that out. It's just called Baseball Score Log, and it can be found on Amazon, and it's only $9.99. I also include how I personally keep track of games as a little bit of an instruction guide on the first couple of pages, so you can keep score like the same way that I do. Also, I am in the process of writing a ebook. So it'll be a baseball for beginners ebook that I have been working on for the past couple of weeks. It'll just kind of walk through the rules of the game, how to watch it for the first time, and just give you a general idea for how to understand baseball from a very, very basic perspective. So I'll definitely let y'all know whenever that is available. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch y'all next time. Bye.